Okay, you all should have your strategic position and milestones development and exit plan and your marketing plans back. I want to just take a minute to talk about those now that you have them in front of you. Strategic positioning, most of you did define a direct strategic position and support it. Many of you told more about the industry and the trends and everything again. I felt like it was a repeat, summarized it somewhat, wasn't directly copied and pasted, but didn't lead to helping with the strategic position. And then there was just a paragraph and said, here's my strategic position. So I would have liked to see more how those areas were entwined with the strategic position, opposed to, here it is all again, here's my strategic position. So more of a relationship between the two. Frederick?
So what do you mean exactly by like writing more about strategic position? Because you wrote for me like focus on strategic position, and I chose the customer perception factor as my strategic position. Took out the 3 main factors which are relevant for my industry and described them.
Right, and I think if you're on the second page before you started talking. On the first page, how did that relate to your strategic position? So that's what I'm saying. You talked about the industry and the trends, some of you did again. How did that relate? Because all of a sudden it's labeled strategic position and risk assessment, you start talking about the industry again. So if I did circle, that's what I meant. How do we talk about the industry? How do we talk about the trends in the target market now with the relationship of your strategic position? Okay, so good point, I'm glad, and a lot of people did that. You know, they just then took areas of their industry analysis and then just put it in there. But it needed to be encompassed, and now let's look at those particular areas with a strategic position in mind. Make sense?
So strategic position first.
No, when you're talking about the industry, where does your strategic position come into play? So you can still talk about the industry, but from the relation, how is this industry going to align with your strategic position? How does your target market align with your strategic position? How do the trends align?
I mean, I did that.
You did that?
Like,
okay, good for you then.
For example, I wrote like in industry trends that it's hard to get new nurses because of the scarcity. And then I wrote in this strategic position that I want to take care of that.
Okay.
For example. But
okay.
I mean, one of the industry trends was like, because of the baby boomers, there are more people over 65.
So in your strategic position was customer perception. So where's the relationship there? Okay, my point. Okay, so try to figure out when you're describing the trends, what's the relationship with the strategic position you chose?
Okay, so we only should write about the industry trends related to our strategic.
Right, because we already talked about the industry trends, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. I felt like what you did was take a summary of each of those sections and then repeat them, and then there's the strategic position was talked about. So this all should have been the topic of it, strategic position. Okay? I felt like a lot of you did a fine job, but I will tell you this. I've now given you 2 opportunities to make corrections, and I saw the same mistakes the second time. Specifically in the reference list, okay? I wrote all over them the first time, and I know I wrote the exact same thing on them the second time. That will not happen a third time, okay? There's still contractions. They're still using the word run a business opposed to operate, maintain, manage, supervise. All of those kinds of words, very, really, everybody, a lot of, I'm still seeing that. So the first time I see one of those, I'm stopping grading. Okay?
In the examples, even in our book, they use she, he, our.
If you're talking about the management, you can say the management. You've got to be careful if you're talking about the business. The business does not feel.
Okay.
The business does not think.
I get it.
The business is not going to have, it's an it when you're referring to the business. If you want to refer to the management, I still don't want the I and our and that used, but it's different. I think Addie said a lot, the management team will, because the business as an entity can't think, can't plan, it's the management of, okay? So, but I am going to, I mean, guys, I spend hours on this, and that's what I intend to do, but now it's time. I've given you feedback twice, and if you're not taking it or you don't understand, another thing is particularly for the people online, the videos aren't being watched. I have a calculator of who's watching what, and so when I see only 15 people out of a whole class watched a video, or 16, and then I get emails asking those questions that were in the video, that kind of defeats the point. So if you have questions, go back and look at the videos. We're in a great position to have that, so if you don't take notes well, or I talk too fast, you've got the opportunity to do fast forward and rewind 100 times if you like. Doesn't that sound like fun? Okay, so anyway, make sure that you're watching the videos. There were, the grades were over-exaggerated, I should say. So if you're not happy with them, they're over-exaggerated. If you are happy with them, they were over-exaggerated. Meaning, I just gave grades for having stuff there. If you didn't get a full grade on something, you've left out a section. I cannot give you feedback on a section.
And you are rolling?
Okay, you all should have your strategic position and milestones development and exit plan and your marketing plans back. I want to just take a minute to talk about those now that you have them in front of you. Strategic positioning, most of you did define a direct strategic position and support it. Many of you told more about the industry and the trends and everything again. I felt like it was a repeat, summarized it somewhat, wasn't directly copied and pasted, but didn't lead to helping with the strategic position. And then there was just a paragraph and said, here's my strategic position. So I would have liked to have seen more how those areas were entwined with the strategic position, opposed to, here it is all again, here's my strategic position. So more of a relationship between the two. Frederick?
So what do you mean exactly by like writing more about strategic position? Because you wrote for me like focus on strategic position, and I chose the customer perception factor as my strategic position. Took out the 3 main factors which are relevant for my industry and described them.
Right, and I think if you're on the second page before you started talking. On the first page, how did that relate to your strategic position? So that's what I'm saying. You talked about the industry and the trends, some of you did again. How did that relate? Because all of a sudden it's labeled strategic position and risk assessment, you start talking about the industry again. So if I did circle, that's what I meant. How do we talk about the industry? How do we talk about the trends in the target market now with the relationship of your strategic position? Okay, so good point, I'm glad, and a lot of people did that. You know, they just then took areas of their industry analysis and then just put it in there. But it needed to be encompassed, and now let's look at those particular areas with a strategic position in mind. Make sense?
So strategic position first.
No, when you're talking about the industry, where does your strategic position come into play? So you can still talk about the industry, but from the relation, how is this industry going to align with your strategic position? How does your target market align with your strategic position? How did the trends align?
I mean, I did that.
You did that?
Like,
Okay, good for you then.
For example, I wrote like in industry trends that it's hard to get new nurses because of the scarcity. And then I wrote in this strategic position that I want to take care of that.
Okay.
For example. But
Okay.
I mean, one of the industry trends was like, because of the baby boomers, there are more people over 65.
So in your strategic position was customer perception, so where's the relationship there? Okay, my point. Okay, so try to figure out when you're describing the trends, what's the relationship with the strategic position you chose?
Okay, so we only should write about the industry trends related to our strategic position.
Right, because we already talked about the industry trends, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying. I felt like what you did was take a summary of each of those sections and then repeat them, and then there's the strategic position was talked about. So this all should have been the topic of it, strategic position. Okay? I felt like a lot of you did a fine job, but I will tell you this. I've now given you 2 opportunities to make corrections, and I saw the same mistakes the second time. Specifically in the reference list, okay? I wrote all over them the first time, and I know I wrote the exact same thing on them the second time. That will not happen a third time, okay? There's still contractions. They're still using the word run a business opposed to operate, maintain, manage, supervise. All of those kinds of words, very, really, everybody, a lot of, I'm still seeing that. So the first time I see one of those, I'm stopping grading. Okay?
In the examples, even in our book, they use she, he, our.
If you're talking about the management, you can say the management. You've got to be careful if you're talking about the business. The business does not feel.
Okay,
The business does not think.
I get it.
The business is not going to have, it's an it when you're referring to the business. If you want to refer to the management, I still don't want the I and our and that used, but it's different. I think Addie said a lot, the management team will, because the business as an entity can't think, can't plan, it's the management of, okay? So, but I am going to, I mean, guys, I spend hours on this, and that's what I intend to do, but now it's time. I've given you feedback twice, and if you're not taking it or you don't understand, another thing is particularly for the people online, the videos aren't being watched. I have a calculator of who's watching what, and so when I see only 15 people out of a whole class watched a video, or 16, and then I get emails asking those questions that were in the video, that kind of defeats the point. So if you have questions, go back and look at the videos. We're in a great position to have that, so if you don't take notes well or I talk too fast, you've got the opportunity to do fast forward and rewind 100 times if you like. Doesn't that sound like fun? Okay, so anyway, make sure that you're watching the videos. There were, the grades were over-exaggerated, I should say. So if you're not happy with them, they're over-exaggerated. If you are happy with them, they were over-exaggerated. Meaning, I just gave grades for having stuff there. If you didn't get a full grade on something, you've left out a section. I cannot give you feedback on a section that you completely left out. Many people left out the development and milestone section. Okay? Many people were very narrowed on their exit plan. I am going to sell this business. Well, that might be one of your strategic positionings in exiting the business, but what if it doesn't sell? Okay? Or I'm going to have investors do this, therefore I can do this with the exiting out of the business. I think you needed to look a little broader. Yes, selling it may be your first option. If it's not profitable, you're probably not going to be able to sell it. So you would say things like, the business wasn't profitable, so I'm going to try to sell it. Okay, that's going to be a hard sale. Business wasn't profitable, so we're going to liquidate the assets. Or the business wasn't profitable, we're just going to close the door, pay off as much of the debt as we can, and hopefully not go into bankruptcy. Okay, so there's other ways. Mergers probably aren't going to happen unless they just buy your customer list. If you couldn't make it work, somebody else probably doesn't want to try to come in and make it work. Okay, how many times do we see a restaurant on a particular corner as a new restaurant every time we drive by? Now, how many times do you think that it's going to take before somebody reads, there must be something wrong with that location? Okay, or there's something wrong with the business. Why would I buy a losing business or go in the location? Another thing about restaurants is not only do people think, well, I've been to that place, it keeps turning over, I'm not going again. but you also remember the location for either bad food or bad service. It doesn't even give the new place a chance. Not always, but there seems to be that particular spot that it's a different restaurant every time you drive by. You know, be real careful. You might want to buy their assets and go move them and do something else with it, or if you're thinking about expanding, buying their assets so that you can expand. Okay. So think about what you want to do. Now, you also have to think about if the assets don't equal up to what your debt is. Are you going to have to file bankruptcy? Do you have enough contingency to take care of those debts? Okay, so it's more than I'm tired of the business, I'm going to retire and sell it. If the situation's bad, I'm going to retire and sell it. If the situation's good, I'm going to retire and sell it. Those don't really happen like that. Okay? Now, you could plan that if the business is successful, that you want it to be bought up by a larger company, so you start promoting it to a larger company, or franchising, or any of those things. But where are you going to go with things, good or bad? And they're not the same, unfortunately. You don't get the opportunity to say, well, I tried it and I failed. Who wants to buy this for $1 million? Okay, that's a hard sell to make. So usually you're just liquidating. Some of you went to the extent of saying, buying the business, you were going to protect your employees. That's really a great, noble thing to do. Okay, that's something that I wrote in my contract when I sold my business. At least give my managers and employees, 6 months. So they at least knew they were on a timeline to find another job. But to come in and just wipe out, you really lose it. And sometimes it's up to a year. Yes?
If you include liquidation, do you want us to break that down, like how we plan to liquidate?
No, you just say sell off all the equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, sell off the equipment is fine. Another thing is, too many times, even in the goals and in the milestones in the developing sessions, you use the word hope. Okay? You've got to be careful about that. You're going to strive to succeed in this goal or something, but you hope to. I think some of you overuse the word hope, or we're all hoping. This business is running on a hope. Okay? So make sure that you change some of that. But I'm really serious. The first thing I see, I'm going to stop grading. Okay? So now you need to step up to the plate. I've given you 2 very thorough papers with feedback in now, and I did see some of the exact same things, especially on the reference list. There is an example that I sent you when I was in Mexico that I expect your reference list to look like that. Also, the reference list for websites also says the date it was retrieved from in the company, or the website title. Okay, so there's a proper way. So if I've written improper formatting for websites, you need to fix that before the next time. Yes?
2 questions.
Okay.
One is, I put in the word run about a newspaper ad. What would be a better word to use for that?
That one is a little tricky, and I remember when I circled that. Just advertise in the newspaper?
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, the only person in this class that should be using run is Brett. He's in the shoe business. He will talk about runners and that they run. The rest of it is operate, maintain, advertise in the newspaper, opposed to run an ad. I know that's common language and we all understand it. I'm trying to get you to beef up your professional language. Your seniors, guys, you're getting ready to graduate. I really want to push you to that next step in your writing style. Okay, so for the most part, I think the writing part is if anything, it's acceptable. In some cases it's not, and I wrote that, but it's more of, let's notch it up. You're now seniors in business. Let's notch that up, and I really want to push you there to move that up a little bit. Okay? Anything else you can think of that I might have written? The planning of the marketing plan where you said radio stations, I really wanted you to identify radio stations and tell me why you chose those and why would you choose a particular radio station.
I was trying to look for like other sources, like the most popular radio stations in the valley and stuff, and I couldn't find any like actual journals or articles on it, just like Wikipedia and other pages that just listed
Yeah,
every
but
radio
common
station.
sense tells us what? Common sense tells us what kind of radio station should we be advertising for?
Well, it depends on your business.
Well, it depends on your target market, right? And I believe I was looking at one paper, and I don't know, one of the home cares, is that, no, it wasn't the home care, I think it might have been yours, Mark. Somebody made the comment that they were going to also do direct mail because they said that people generally do not check their email as often as they get mail. Okay, maybe it wasn't Mark. Well, I don't believe that fact, and you can't state a fact like that without referencing. And second of all, I'm going to pick on Mark again for a second. The trampoline business, do we expect that people use their email, his target market?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the 80-year-old that maybe doesn't check their email is not the one going to be at the trampoline center. Well, I don't know, then maybe, but probably not a large majority of them. So make sure, again, that everything is aligning. Your advertisement's aligning to your target market. You know, you don't want an easy listening radio station for the trampoline, okay? You know, you want a more, you got to find out what appeals to your target market, what type of music. Now, you may have to make it up that I believe this radio station is the most appropriate to my target market.
So without having like resources like, well, these, age group listens to this radio.
Oh, you can call the
source.
radio station, they have all that.
Do they?
Yeah, in fact, Addie, remember, didn't both of you go on the radio station and tour it? Yes, they have that. They know which channel, who the demographics are listening to each of those different channels. So call them.
Okay.
Or you may just know, my group is a hip-hop group, therefore I'm going to advertise to a hip-hop group.
Yeah, because when opening the trampoline park, the radio station person wants to come in and talk to you, and they have a list of, this is your target market, here's what radio station you want.
Yeah, because each company probably has, as we saw over here in Medford, they have it had at least five stations.
Country, rock,
Yeah, they had
hip-hop, all like. it was
Talk
next to each
radio,
other.
they had them all in the same building, and there was different studios going on in each room, and it was to hit all the different target markets. They know this stuff. Call them and ask them. Same thing like you're going to need to call insurance companies. You're going to need to call banks. You're going to call real estate companies. You're going to be calling a lot of people to get the information you need. Ready? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I got two questions actually. Like in the milestone section, I wrote just like the business plan is up to date, the only milestone. Or
And a lot of people said that, and I just said expand because the one sentence looked funny. I think you could expand and say the industry analysis has been thoroughly researched, the market the industry and the market have been thoroughly researched. So when I say expand, say more, even though all this is encompassing in the plan, maybe some of you have already secured a location, okay? Maybe some of you have already secured clients. Maybe you already have purchase orders for some things. So those kinds of things. If it truly is only the business plan, try to expand on that because you've already done quite a bit.
okay.
Yeah, and so that's what I was referring to. Thanks, I wrote that on a lot of people's paper. So if that's the case, that's what I was referring to.
The second question was like, I wrote that people over 65 normally do not trust into technology as much as younger people. That's like kind of common sense.
It's not. You have no common sense in this when it comes to stating evidence like that. I think I shared with you in my dissertation, I had something that was very common sense that I thought, and anybody I asked said it was common sense. I had to spend 3 days researching to find someone who wrote it so I could reference it and then say it in mine. So I think I wrote that in Addie's a couple times and some other people's. When you stated this is this, no. You cannot make those claims. You cannot make those claims at all.
Okay.
All right? That's part of doing research. You have to find someone else. That's your opinion. So either state it as your opinion or find reference. An opinion's probably not going to be real solid.
So, just for example, if I type it in Google and there comes an article from
That's right.
The Economist or something,
Yep.
that
Then you
that's
can
totally
say
fine.
it and reference it. But then you reference it. Yes, that's how research works. Right? For those of you who've been in my research class, everything has to be researched.
that author made it up by himself. Like, he just
They're
said.
talking about like a credible source, like does it have to be?
Well, I mean, it's not going to be a .com, you know, but that author could have, but maybe we don't know where it came from. You just can't be the original sayer of things that are set, that you think are set in stone. You know, with some others. Eddie, you had one that I got you on, I think. You made a comment about.
Weed through all of this green.
Well, now she's upset that I wrote green on it. A minute ago I said I wasn't going to do any more green. Y'all got upset.
There was, you said referencing about word of mouth advertising and the fact that people are more likely to click over a television ad than a radio ad.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah, you can't say that more people are to look at or listen to a radio ad than a TV. Now, that we could know that because so many people just go right through the commercials, but you cannot make that claim without some evidence to say that. And remember, the word of mouth part was, it is not a strategic marketing plan. It is the result of your marketing. The only thing that is considered strategic marketing or your marketing plan are things that you have control over. I have control over sending 200 brochures out. I have control over advertising in the newspaper. I have control over putting a commercial or a billboard or any of those things out. I do not have control over word of mouth. Is word of mouth very, very important and detrimental to your business? Absolutely. But it's not, it's a result of the business. Because think about it, can I start my business with word of mouth? How do you get the word of mouth going? It's like the chicken before the egg, right? So you've got to get the business going. How are you going to advertise? And I think I mentioned last week too, advertising needs to be the strongest when when you can't afford it. Okay? When you first start off in business, advertising needs to be extremely strong because you're trying to get the message out there. I know you don't have a lot of money then. Cut somewhere else. That's the biggest mistake businesses make. When sales go down, they cut the advertisement. Guess what happens? The sales are going to go down further. So you advertise when you can't afford it is the most important time to advertise. Okay? It's kind of a tricky thing, but you might have to let something else go. Do not let advertising go. Maybe a consultant has to go or something else. Yes?
I have a question about the grading, and you were saying that after 2 papers, you're not going to accept any of the same mistakes. But just to kind of play devil's advocate, since I didn't get mine back from you until after I already submitted mine.
That's why the third one we're counting out on.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Nope, I gave everybody 2. That's why I did it. I usually do it on this one. So everybody has their paper back now, 2 sets before they do the third. Okay? So we're all on the same. Thanks for that devil advocacy there.
I'm just a little worried I'm doing the same thing over and over.
So you're saying it's when we make the edits of the peer reviews, so we have already catch them for this one?
Well, I hope you're catching them. I think the peer reviews, with the exception of a few people I thought were kind of lame, you know, and they may have like 3 comments in a 6-page paper, and I'm writing for days. I'm thinking, wow, surely they could have found something. I'm writing for days, and they're just so. This is not a time to, I don't know if it's to be kind to your peers and not slam them, but I tell you what, if I was a peer, I'd want you to slam me because I want this to get as much feedback. So I know some of you gave a lot of good feedback, and some of you made 2 or 3 comments. It's reflected in your grade. Again, those grades were overinflated. Those grades were extremely overinflated. So, I mean that, yeah, I was being extremely generous because if you, you know, made some attempt turn in the whole thing or gave some, little more than 3 comments, I probably gave you 80, 90, or 100. If there was only half of it there or 2 pages that were some bullet points, you probably got a 0. Okay, so maybe that wasn't overly generous, but yeah, some of those, the feedback from the peers needs to be bumped up. Okay, and the reason I say that is not even just to help your peers, but guess what it does for yourself? It helps you think about how you look at your paper. Remember the first week when you guys did the peer reviews of someone else? How critical you were? Boy, wouldn't it have been nice if they had that information before? They went through all the peer reviews, they went through my reviews, and you guys still found things on the final paper? So when you're thinking about it, not just to help your peers, but how it helps you think outside of the box so you can be a better critic of your own work. That really is. The way you learn the most is teaching. Okay, so make sure that you're providing the same type of feedback you would like, but when you're saying, wow, this is interesting, this is something maybe I ought to include in mine. Okay, make yourself a note. Okay.
I have a question for using better words and everything when we should write about that in peer reviews. Like, I have my problems with that because I'm not totally sure if my
That's okay. That's not what I'm wanting you guys to appear. Now, if you see the word run or vary and all the words I've said, that's one thing. That's not really what I want you guys to do. I want you to not only do those obvious things, but I really want you to read the content and then question it. What about if the business isn't successful, what are you going to do? You can't sell it. What about your strategic plan? Does it really match up? Does your advertising you're going to do match, direct mail, match the advertisement of a bunch of young people? Those are the comments. Those are the discussions so that you're really analyzing it, not just going through and making a bunch of edits. The obvious edits, I don't expect you guys to rewrite sentences for each other. Just say, poor sentence structure or confusing sentence structure. So if you couldn't even figure out what they were trying to say, make a note of that so they can clarify it. Right? It's really hard to write your own stuff because you know what you were trying to say and then someone else picks it up. And it's worthless if only you understand it. Why bother writing it? Okay? The app I told you of having things read back to you, I highly recommend you use that. I posted it on Moodle. And I highly, highly recommend, I've seen great success in using the Writing Center at the library. For those of you who have the privilege of coming on campus, the Writing Center is great. It's located in the library. Do not go there 5 minutes before your final paper is due. Go there in enough time for each section. Get their feedback before you turn it in. Take it afterwards that I've given you feedback and say, here's the areas that have been circled or commented on. What can I do? How could I write this more clearly? Now, they're not going to rewrite your paper, but they will sit there with you and work through. You're not going to drop your paper off and pick it back up. Okay? So, but you make appointments and you sit there. I have definitely seen improvements. In my research class, there was a group of guys, and I was just going, guys, you got to get some help, you got to get some help. And all of a sudden, I got this beautiful paper, and I said, what happened? And they said, we spent 3 hours over at the Writing Center. I said, well, it sure...
No, if you're just like, if you live in a skyscraper or something, let's
Okay.
just say that, and you've got a
All right, that's a different way. We were talking about whether they are allowed to have pets in their facility. But you're right. If we look at it that way, living arrangements are good. There's no place to bury a pet in a skyscraper. But he may also be able to sell them a gravestone.
Just to put on their mantle or...
Yeah, or put out in the garden or
Is he
something.
offering cremation also?
He isn't.
Oh, no.
No, he's not offering. Cremation is actually his competitor. But for the burial, but not for the gravestone. And I explained that to him, that a lot of people still get the tombstones, place them in their gardens, and take them with them when they go places, when they move. not when they go places, when they take the pet on vacation.
Supermarket, grab the gravestone.
Yeah, grab the gravestone. Okay, so there could be multiple variables. My point is you constantly have to be looking back at what you determined your population to be. Okay, once we determine all of that, and we still come out with this huge number, say it's 120,000, 120,000 what?
Is that number of people owning?
Yeah, these are, well, this is the population that own pets. Okay, so now we brought it down. We're still talking about the frequency of gravestones. We haven't changed it to anything. So this is the potential of how many people would buy a gravestone or a burial, whatever he's doing at this point. He may have to do 2 of these. Okay, so 120,000. So what does he need to look at?
How much you can actually handle.
Right. How long does it take to make each one? Where's the material coming from? How long is the material? So he's got to look at capacity. Okay? Now, you guys try to keep putting capacity in with the total market potential. Okay, you've showed me your capacity, but I don't really need to see it here, which is what we're going to talk about today that goes in your operations section. But it's okay. It's something that needs to be thought of when you're looking at your sales forecast. What else do we need to look at? Competition, right? Okay, so you need to look at the competition. That also showed up in our competitive analysis, so I don't really need it here. But what I need to know, if you decide that you're going to take on your sales forecast of 10% market share, that you're going to do 100 or you're going to do 12,000 of these, can you? Does your production, when I go to your operations section, say I can do 12,000 of these in a year? Is there enough room, given all the competitive analysis I did, for me to do 12,000 a year? Okay. What if I say I'm going to do 12,000 a year and I multiply that out by the price that I'm selling the gravestone? And it's the revenue for the year is kind of low. And I can't hit my expenses and it's just not going to work out. Then what do I do? Okay, I may have to widen my target market. Maybe this was just the population of people who own dogs and cats directly in Medford city limits. Maybe I need to widen it. What if I'm looking at this and I'm saying 0.01%? Did I not, I could maybe have not have taken a big enough market share? Or there's so much there that if I want to capture it, what do I need to do? If I want to capture more than that because I can make money at that, I may need to expand my capacity. I may need to hire 2 or 3 people. I may need to narrow my focus, right? Overselling is bad too. So just because you did this a couple weeks ago, understand it, because you may have to go back and broaden or narrow it depending on how it comes out in your financials. Now, what I know students do, and it's perfectly okay, is figure out what this percentage needs to be and work backwards so that whatever my revenue here is going to work out in my financials for the first year. That's perfectly okay. You know, I've got 2 employees, I can make this much, I can do all of that, I figured out my capacity, figured out my competitors. What would make my sales look good for the bottom line? Now, you're not going to make money probably the first year. And if you tell me you're going to make, you know, 200,000 the first month, I think there's a problem. Okay? So, but you can actually work backwards. Okay? There wasn't enough here. By the time I put all my expenses to this, I'm down here with a negative, which is okay as long as the negative is getting less as I go across each month. But we're talking at the end of the year. Was that a huge loss for the whole year? Or was that pretty understandable and I've got room and I see I'm growing for the future? So when this number gets put in, which is whatever 12,000 times his price of what he's selling, if that number's good, we can, move on. If it's not, you've got to go back and either narrow or broaden your target market. And that's either working with the population or maybe narrowing an age group or an income or broadening an income or one of the variables. Okay? You all understand, I hope, that this sales forecast is directly linked with your annual revenue for year one. Right? Do we all understand that now? Can you get to this 100 different ways? Yeah, depending on what population you took. Depending on if you already narrowed this down by age group, or you already narrowed this down, you don't want to do it again in these variables. So there are lots of different ways that you can do this. Okay? If we would have done it the way I was suggesting to Carl, and it was one frequency, then down here he would have had to add in that pets are dying every 12 years. So whether you put it here or here, what's important is whatever your forecast, it is a forecast. That's how you project forecasting. You look at what you can make, you look at what the competition's you're doing, and you look at what your target market needs. Okay? So this is a moving target for a while here. And remember, it is a forecast. We're projecting this. But we've got to have something to project to see if this business is going to be sustainable. Right? So is this starting to be not so muddy anymore? Just a little milky? Okay? All right, I know this isn't an easy concept, and what I need you to understand, which Brenda just brought up too, is as you write your paper for other sections, you're going to start thinking and coming across different things. It's going to change. Okay, you got to remember, not quite to the point that Brady had his change. It went from one industry to the other. What was he? He was in the hat industry, and then he went to what industry?
Well, it was saved as the same file name, so
he took his
I uploaded
427
that,
one,
yeah.
and then the new one came together, and I was having a heck of a time figuring that out. So,
Very
yeah, it's
good.
not going to change to that extreme, but you may go back and say what your target market was 3 weeks ago is no longer your target market. You may go back and find out, wow, there's another industry that's really important for me to do some research on. I got to add another industry in there. Or, you know what? Here's a cool new way I came about selling. Some of you brought up that there's a lot of neat advertising companies that actually, you sit down very economically. Daddy, did you choose one? That will do a lot of things for you. Make your logo, get it out, do your target market to, determine, well, you tell them what your target market is. Here's all the ways, and here's the price tag for it. Take what you want. Okay? One thing I have an issue with, and it's only a small issue, is when you say something is free. Okay? It's free to advertise on Facebook. It's free to advertise on Twitter. In all reality, it is, but why isn't it? Yeah, the hours you put in it. Isn't your time worth something, or that you pay someone else to keep it up to date? So there's always time. I hear that a lot even in the School of Business when there's a certificate that's not, it's all a bunch of classes that we already offer and we put them together, and they say, why get rid of the certificate even though somebody, might want it? Not very many people are going for it, but it takes someone to keep the catalog up to date. It takes someone to make the brochures. It takes, there are all those things. So be careful when you say something is free, okay? Because it is going to cost you something. It's okay that you said it's free on there, but I just want you to keep in your mind, free isn't exactly free. It just doesn't get dropped in your lap and it's all done. All right? So does this help a little more? Hopefully, I know a lot of people are still struggling with this, and it is something, it's a moving target. It can be done 1,000 ways. You just have to prove to me your way is evidence that is supported throughout your paper. If you tell me your target market is between 18 and 24, then this should be 18 and 24. If you decide that's too narrow, you need to go back to your target market section and change it, and then support that, and then change it here. So we're going to keep the whole paper. You don't do a section and set it aside. If you do, it's not going to work out so well for you. as you go, you need to make sure. And what you might want to do is keep a notebook. I've just decided I need to go back and add this in my market. I just found out that target market is not, it's moving. The people that used to do that are now, because now I'm hearing things, Facebook is for older people now. More older people use Facebook than younger people now. So what are younger people using? Instagram maybe? So it's moving. So what you thought might be your target market, it may be the day you open your business, but if you keep doing that, you know, you're just gonna, you're gonna die out with your target market. Right? One other thing that came to mind, a couple when I said that I had submitted all the grades. If you do not have a grade for your personal web page or the submission of your final or a proposal to begin with for this class, not the final but the original one, in a timely manner that was set, then you won't get a grade even if you've gone back and done it. Okay, so even if you've gone back and completed your personal thing, if it was done 3 weeks late, or the fact that you didn't submit your first idea to me for a week later, that's why those grades are going to remain 0. Okay, so I told you those things were due, and that's to just tell you why. I appreciate that you go back and do the personal web page. There's not a lot we can do, and I'll go back and look and make sure I've got them all right and that they were time-stamped and that I have them right. But I think I've already done that once, and I had a couple people send me emails just this morning, and so that may be the issue that's
So we
going on.
could have done it until last week.
No, I think it said it needed to be done the first week of the term. Yeah, yeah. What,
There's
before,
like 5 weeks.
yeah. Yeah, so they were time stamped, so I'll go back and look and see if they hit the time on that. Okay? Anything else before we start new information? Okay. Now, this next,
Sorry.
yes.
I did have a question about social responsibility. It kind of has to do with if I need to put this in my financials. But a couple of things I wanted to do was offer coupons. Like I wanted to offer a coupon for if someone showed proof of spay or neutering their pet, or if they adopted from the shelter. And do I have to include the coupons in what I expect, like, cost me?
Yeah, well, 2 ways. First of all, if there's any expense in printing the coupons, it would be in your advertising. But the other thing is, you've got to make a decision on what percentage do people normally use coupons,
Okay,
and then you need to adjust your sales.
yeah,
So if your sales, if you're saying you're going to sell 500 of those at $100, but generally people use 10% of the coupons they get, or people usually use 10 coupons 10%, you got to lower some of that so it's not a direct reflection. And if they say, why doesn't this number matter? Because I predicted, or I found evidence that show, you know, gift cards are amazing. It's less than 50% of people that actually use a gift card. Yes, that's why we started seeing gift cards at the grocery store for every business in the world, because that's just pure money that never gets recouped. What's that? Lose it, or it expires, or you just, you know, put it away somewhere. I don't know how many gift certificates I've lost. Not lost, just expired. At all those silent auctions, I lose almost all of them.
When you have like $2 left on your card, you just like don't really want to.
Yeah, yeah,
Split
keep up
the
with it.
transaction.
Yeah, so, you know, there's probably some evidence out there how often people take advantage of coupons.
And that's also like why most businesses give you a refund on a gift card now.
Yeah.
Instead of giving you
That's
cash
right.
back or something.
Yeah, yeah, chances are you won't hang on to it. So, yeah, so do that. If you're giving out coupons, it needs to reflect in your sales. It needs to also be what the printing cost is and the distribution of the coupon. So there are some costs that could be associated with that. Okay. What else? Anything else before we move on? Okay, the sections we're going to talk about today are operations, and as you see in parentheses, I have possibly technology. And the only reason I say possibly technology, you're probably going you are most likely going to have technology, but whether it constitutes its own section or can be incorporated into the operations section is you're going to need a whole technology section, I would believe. Some of you others, if you're just getting a point of sales and just using it for your accounting purposes and you have one laptop or something, it doesn't justify its own section as a technology plan. It would justify, just being mentioned in the operations section. Okay, so that's why I'm saying possibly technology, but given in the sense of will it get its own section or not. Any of you not going to have any technology in your plan? Good answer. That is the correct answer. Okay. So operations, there's one thing I do a little different in this section that I ask that you do. So hopefully those online are watching the video other than just looking at the book. The operations section on chapter, I got a lot of order there, don't I? Oh no, there we go.
It looks like it's like almost a week behind.
Operations will be due this weekend, and I'm talking about them today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. Okay, so in chapter 11, where we talk about operations, this is where some of the things that you guys had tried to put in with your total market potential. Okay? This describes how you will, and I hate they put the word in there, but how you will operate, manage your business, not run your business. Okay? I don't know why I have such a terrible feeling about that word. It just doesn't seem very professional. So how are you going to manage your business? How is your business going to operate? And so there's several different things. Essentials to the nature and success of your company, provide you with distinct competitive edge, and overcome a frequent problem in business of your type. How are you going to overcome issues? So first of all, you're going to talk about your facility, right? And this may require that you have pictures or you talk to real estate agents about rental fees or rental companies or buying or whatever. May even require that you talk to a bank if you're going to buy the facility. Location. Okay, well with the facility too, you may want to do a floor plan. Not necessary, but that would be something that would go in the appendix. Location. You know, some of you, your location needs to be very visible, so you're going to pay for that type of location. Some of you can be in warehouse space, off the beaten path, because you're more of a wholesaler, or it's so unique that people will go out of their way, and so you can get warehouse type space that's a lot less expensive. So again, make sure your location matches the whole thing. Everything has to come in. Yes?
In regards to the location, do you want us to find like a specific address of like an open building that's available for lease right now, or just like a street?
I think, well, I guess my answer, Brad, is yes and no. It doesn't have to be available, but it would be nice to say this is what type of building and the location and the visibility that I'm looking for, and this is what it costs.
Okay.
Okay? If it's not available at that time, that's okay, but we get an idea that you either want to be in a strip center, or you want to be in the mall, or you want to be just out in the mall's parking lot, a separate building, what it is, to give us an idea. It doesn't need to be available, but if you went and took a picture of this is where my prime spot would be, that's okay. Yes?
So it could be like a competitor.
That you're going to buy out a competitor?
Yeah, I mean like at least to just get numbers with like this is the location I want to be, like and their rent per month is $1,500.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Addie?
Can I do the same thing for a food truck? Because the spot I wanted, no.
It's
there's
taken?
not there.
Yeah. Yeah, just say, you know, the preferred location is such and such. And if that location in there, I mean, as soon as that location comes available, you're going to take it. So at least we know what you're looking in the future to understand what location is important. And you may say secondary location as far as second choice or second preference would be. You know, if that space isn't available at the time, then here's my secondary choice. Okay? Whether you're going to lease or buy, Also want to explain to something to you about leasing. You are kind of in the driver's seat in a lot of times when you lease a building. You see a lot that they say, we'll build to suit, meaning that they'll build on a piece of property something for you. One thing that I remember negotiating with my lease being in Texas, and it had air conditioning in the office and the waiting room where people were going to wait, is that the landlord told me I was responsible for the air conditioning unit. And I said, no, I'm not. I tell you what, I'll give you my word, and you can check it, that I'm going to change the filter every once a month or whatever's required. But I'm not going to, if that air conditioning unit goes out, I'm not buying you a new air conditioning unit. Okay? But it was written, and so I negotiated that out. There's no way I wanted to pay. My luck, it would go out in the middle of the summer, and I'd have to buy, and then who knows, maybe 6 months later I moved, and he's got a brand new air conditioning unit. Okay? So be real careful. Just because it says it, everything in a lease is usually negotiable. Right? We even negotiate no pets, and then you come in and you go, well, look, it's the size of a rat. What could it do? It sleeps in my pocket. You know, they go, okay, we'll make an exception. You can have this dog in the apartment complex or whatever. So there's always exceptions to leasing. Make sure that you're thinking about those. Those probably won't reflect in your plan so much, but I just wanted you to know there's always exceptions to leasing. The improvements that you do on leased property are tax write-offs. Okay? There's also a section on Moodle where I've written everything that can be. I got from one of the accountants to write how things are written off. Did you guys see that? It's up in the top about tax write-offs. So understand that some things can be. So improvements would go on your balance sheet or your cash flow as far as things that you can write off. So where it said land and equipment, add improvements. All right? So some things, it's questionable. Now you'll have to look at it because I don't have them memorized, but if you add another bathroom, I believe it's a write-off, but if you put a new sidewalk in the front, it's not. Or landscaping is and one's not. So look at that. So some things, so be careful about the improvements you make on someone else's property. Okay? Also, if you want them to make the improvements, what do they usually ask for? More deposit, but more often than not, they don't care about that. What do they care about? A longer lease. Okay? I'll lease this from year to year, but if you want me to put all this into it to specialize and customize it for you, I want a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease.
Personal guarantee.
Like what? What would be a personal guarantee they might want?
Like, you're going to guarantee that you're going to pay them if you go out of business in 3 months and you have a 5-year lease, you're going to pay it for 1 or 2 years of
Right.
time.
Right. But think about why they would ask that. That would be the craziest thing in the world to ask. You just went out of business now, I want you to pay me. You have no money to be in business, I want you to pay me 3 years. I wouldn't make that deal if I was a renter or someone renting, the renter. The person who owns the property.
Renter.
Okay. Well, I'm a renter if I was renting a place. Okay, the landlord, there we go. Okay, the owner, okay. So be careful making a deal like that with somebody. If you're leasing out some property, you say, okay, I'm gonna do all those improvements, but if you go out of business, I want you to pay me 3 years for this. You're going, right, can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, right? So be careful about how you phrase things. And always, it's hard to be that paranoid, but always be trying to think ahead. Do I really want to lock myself into a 10-year lease? Am I okay with 5? 10 is pushing it. I mean, so be always thinking, you know, I've got a responsibility. These are contracts. I can be sued. Okay, so make sure. Cindy?
I'm going to have a home office. I have future plans to have like an office space. Would I talk about both or just one?
When is the future space going to come into play? Within the 3 years?
5 years.
Okay, so we won't talk about it per se, but you would in your development, in your moving forward.
So that I don't have to talk about rent or leasing or.
Yes, you do, and that's what I'm getting ready to show you. I think we mentioned this before. So if you're going to work out of a house, and for simplicity, here's our nice modern house. Okay, it's divided into 4 sections, and this part of it is your office. Okay, that's 1/4 of the square footage. Okay, your rent will be 1/4 of the mortgage or the rent. Your utilities will be 1/4 of the entire place. Everything is by 1/4. It's done by square footage. Okay, so if the square footage, you actually measure whatever office you're in. When I do a lot of publishing from home, I do this. I can write my office off at home, and I take what the size of that room is I'm working in, and I'm able to expense everything out in proportion to what that square footage is. Okay? So even though you're working at home, go ahead and treat that as rent and utilities and everything, which is 1/4 of it. Whether it's water, electricity, the internet cable, whatever, if it's being used for the entire house, you take just the square footage of it, that percentage. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's how it's done on your taxes. Because we don't want to give a message that the rent is really free and there is no utilities, because it gives you a poor sense of how the business is really doing. Talks about improvements, utility maintenance, key factors, and then the production. Here's where the capacity comes in. Accessing your production plan. Your labor and your variable labor. What's the difference of those two? Is it a difference where we put it on the income statement? Yeah, the labor we usually say is like salaries. Isn't directly related to the service you do or the product you make. Okay, variable labor is variable, directly related to a product you make. If you get paid every one of these widgets you make, you get $10, that's variable labor. So if you don't sell anything, you have no labor. Okay? The variable labor is considered cost of goods. It goes up at the top of the income statement. Anything that's labor that is, regardless of what you do, or if you have any business, they get paid that salary or that part-time, whatever it is, that goes down as an expense. And it will automatically go there in both those places, depending on how you put it in the people sheet. All right? The capacity, here's a place where you write about your capacity. Your quality control. Wow, are we all going to have some kind of quality control? What might the quality control look like?
I'm doing smoothies, so it would be like the thermometer to make sure that everything's at the correct temperature.
Yeah. And who's going to do that for every smoothie that goes out? Are you going to randomly do quality control?
Well, I'm thinking about having it in the areas where the fruit and stuff is kept.
Okay. Okay, so you're always looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Quality control anywhere else? Yeah.
Would mine be like the number of returns I get? Or like,
It could be, but you could also prevent it beforehand. So
yeah.
maybe, let me know, Brett, if I'm right about, I was just thinking about the running store downtown Ashland. You get on a machine and you run for a while and it records how you're stepping, and then they say, these are the shoes that are best for you, right?
Yeah.
So if you have that type of machinery, maybe what you do is you do it twice instead of just once.
Okay.
You might have got a false reading the first time. Okay.
Well,
What
like
I
a second opinion,
or
like 2 employees.
yeah, I ran it, this is what I think, here's the results, or here's the results a second time, what do you think? One of the things I did in my business is usually there were 2 mechanics working on each car. One we called the outside mechanic that did the things under the hood, and one was the inside that did everything under the dash. And before the car could go out, there was always a third person that did not work on the car, and sometimes it was me or sometimes it was someone else, that would do a complete check so that they could look at it with new eyes. And so that was our quality control of doing that. Also, another way of quality control is one car comes in and you look at the guy and say, how many cars have you done this to? This is the last 5 that came in like this. You call them. We have reason to believe there may be some difficulties. Could you swing by? We can take care of it before it becomes a problem and you're sitting in 5 o'clock traffic at 110 degrees. Okay? But there needs to be something built in. Whether it's giving back, which is part of customer service too, give us a card, let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback. That could be part of quality control too, but it also can be part of customer service. But somehow you've got quality control built into the system. Addie?
Would like an internal control, like tracking inventory, or regularly, like I'm gonna have to regularly make sure my produce is as it should be. Is
Sure,
that
quality control, yeah. Anything that's going to assist that your quality is current, accurate, in production of hats, right? The quality control would be maybe every 10th one you take it and you inspect it, okay? Like Six Sigma we see. You know, you run through, you guys have heard about all that in your operations class. What's going on? How often do we pull a part off and just randomly check it?
Would the way it's being produced be part of the quality control?
Yeah, sure, the way it's being produced. But I mean, you want to actually physically every once in a while grab one and say, is this up to my standard?
Yeah.
Is the stitching right? Is it going to hold up? You know, whatever it is, you want to try it. And one thing I was going to add, Esmeralda, about yours is, I noticed that you didn't have a time that the employees taste the smoothies. Now, I think they should get a smoothie every time they're on the clock. A free smoothie. Why?
So that they know what they're selling. I think that was, maybe, I didn't mention it, but it was a part of their training.
Yeah.
And they're learning about all the different benefits.
But I think it should be on a regular basis because as new flavors come out. The first thing I do when I go to a restaurant, I ask the waiter or waitress, what is your favorite item on the menu? And if they say, I don't know, I never eat here. Okay, you're seeing how it's cooked and you're seeing it every day. I got an issue here. But they may tell me, I like lots of things on the menu. Are you interested in fish or chicken tonight? I've got different things. Or they may say, you know, but for them to give me feedback is important. So for your customers not to know what they're selling could be an issue. What equipment and furnishings you're going to need? How you're going to do inventory control. Is inventory control important? Yeah, especially in the food business. Is it first in, first out, or first out, first in? Okay? Yeah. Is that always going to work out? What about in the shoe store? You might have obsolete inventory right away, and that shoe is an old shoe, so you got to discount it. So it's more of the newer stuff is what's going to sell. You'd like to think the older stuff is going to sell.
Yeah.
But in food, we've got perishables, we think about it different. So is inventory control even part? Now, some of you don't have inventory at all. It's a service business. You don't have to worry about it. And then it talks about the method of inventory management. Supply and distribution, we've talked about that a little bit before, but this is actually really coming down to telling me who your suppliers are, how you're going to distribute your product, okay, who your suppliers are of equipment, okay, who your suppliers are of, you know, whatever it is that you have, you need to know whether it's dog treats or leashes or cleaners for the kennels, whatever. Who are your suppliers? Now, I always say it's best to be very loyal to one supplier, but don't let that one supplier dictate your business. Right? We saw that with Harry and David. A lot of people, the one supplier, they were a supplier for Harry and David, and they put all their eggs in one basket. When it went under, they went with it. So don't let another business dictate your survival or not. So always have backup, and sometimes they could be out. Now, you're not going to get the buying power if you go to your second one. They're going to say, but if they're smart, what will they do? What will that second supplier do for you when you do call them?
Give you a great deal.
Give you a great deal, great customer service, trying to win you over. Okay? So, you know, pay attention to that, but do not just count on one supplier. It's good to have a well, loyal establishment because you will get benefits from that, but also be aware that if they're out of something, you don't want it to stop your business. Okay, order fulfillment. This is where I'm different. The order fulfillment section, and Frederick's gone, and Carl's gone. He'll have to watch the video. Poor things. The one thing I want you to do in your order fulfillment section is I want one incident of a sale. I want the step-by-step snapshot of what it looks like for a customer from the time they walk in your door till the time you close the deal.
Maybe like a chart?
It can be a chart, it can be whatever, but what I want to know is they come into the business. We already know how they got there because all your great advertising, right? I want to know exactly from the minute they walk in the door until the minute you close the deal. That means how are they going to be greeted? What are they going to be told about first? Is it about sales? Is it about how the memberships work? Is it about how my process is? Is it about how I make my materials? What is it? If it's online, the same thing. How does that one order fulfillment, one instance of an order from start to finish? From the time someone drops their animal off, how they're greeted, how they say goodbye, that you don't just yank the dog and take it off and it's squealing like heck and the person feels really great about it. What is it they can do? Can they get on the video, watch the dog a couple times until they're picked up? And what might happen at the end of the order fulfillment? Pay, obviously.
Try to set up another appointment.
Try to set up another appointment, but solicit some type of feedback. Okay, whether that's a customer card or whether you send them something in the mail later or you give them a website to go on and give feedback. But what you need to do is make sure that you give them freedom in that reply. Because if you demand they fill it out right then, you're not going to get the information you need. And if you demand they hand it right back to you, you're not going to get the information you need. So there either needs to be a Dropbox or it needs to be done anonymously online. But somehow that needs to close the cycle. Not only to find out how that person felt about it, but also to find out in general how you're doing so that you can make changes. Now what you don't need to do, and it's really bad with us faculty, is that we'll get a whole room that says that was the best textbook you could have ever chosen. As one person said, if you ever choose that textbook again, I'll never take another class from you. Do I change the textbook? No, so you're going to have that grumpy customer that you just couldn't please, you couldn't do it, but you need to reflect on it. You know, I had a customer one time that swore we smoked in their car. And at some point I just had to reflect, okay, something happened here, I'm not sure what. Come to find out later, his son, who he didn't know was smoking, smoked in the car. But what's going on? Could I have done anything different? And sometimes you can't. Okay? But getting feedback is really important, and that's part of your customer service. So that needs to be part of that complete, you know, customer service isn't just giving someone a smile. It also isn't not giving. I think the rule of thumb is within the first minute someone walks in, they need to be acknowledged. Okay? So you need to make sure that you acknowledge their existence. I'll be right with you. I'll be off in just a second. Give me a second. You know? But to completely be ignored, can't tell you how many times I walked out of businesses. Really? You couldn't just say, I'll be with you in a second? You know? And let this customer just rattle on and on and on and on. And then what do you do when you've got that customer in the lobby that is tearing you up in front of all your other customers?
Escort them back into another area.
Yeah, a locked area, right? Yeah. You know, you need to mitigate it. You need to just say, yes, you're right, you're right. You know, you need to just not make that escalate more. And you might say, you know, at the moment, this isn't an appropriate time to take care of this. Can you give me a few minutes, help the other customers, and then come back? That may infuriate them even more, but somehow you've got to mitigate and not keep that rage. Because when you fire back, you've just now opened it up free range. Okay? So that whole process, I want to see from the second someone comes in, how, I mean, every detail of it. How they were greeted, what you talked about, then you gave them options of different choices of what they could buy. You know, let us give you a sample. If you've never eaten, first thing you ask them, have you ever eaten here before? And they say no. Would you like to sample something? You know, have you ever been a member of a Cross Fitness before? No. Would you like to have a free pass for the week to see if it's something you want? Can I show you a portfolio of events we've already done? Okay. Can I show you all the fast people in the world in the Olympics that use my shoes from me? Yeah.
So you want like a script of what your employer
Script.
would say?
Yep, exactly. A script is a good word for it too. But the entire process, I want to be able to put myself and understand walking into your business exactly what that experience would be like. Okay? So that's the order fulfillment part. And remember, that is part of customer service, every bit of that. How you treat the customer, how quickly you recognize them, how much attention you take to what their questions are, how you're going to solicit feedback. Okay? So I'm a little bit different in that I want to see one incident. Now, that may not reflect all the incidences because sometimes a person that's already a member walks in. So that may be a whole different scenario of how you greet them. How's everything going? You know, is your training going okay? Hey, we got a new trainer. Did you want to, you know, try them out? They're giving a discount this week, or, you know, anything. But I really want to see probably the initial one. The first time someone comes and solicits your business. What's that like? And please remember to thank them when they're handing their money to you. It happened to me again. Yeah, that didn't happen to you guys? Yeah. Grumpy old people?
No, I just need to pay attention.
You need to. Research and development. You know, companies need to do ongoing research. I think we talked about this, but you need to bring it up that you're going to continue to constantly research and see what the new developments are, especially in the home care system. You know, what are new developments constantly coming out? One of the things that we talked about is the video cams for pets. That wasn't even around, you know, 5 or 10 years ago. Not as affordable as it is now. So how are we going to continue to do research? And that we're at least addressing research needs to be done. Financial control. How are you going to have financial control? You know, do you let the person at the end of the day just grab the money and deposit and say, yep, that's all the money we got for the day? Okay, so what is your accounting practice to make sure that the money that the cash register shows, or when someone's paying cash to your employee, how do you assure that that cash went into the cash register and was rung up in the exact way in which matched what they were getting? What if someone drives through the smoothie and rings them up for only one, but collects the money for two? Right?
Cameras,
What's that?
surveillance systems.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it might be.
You might not be able to tell there was surveillance systems.
You might not, but also what kind of morale does that set when someone knows you already don't trust me, a camera's on me? That's what we think, right? The minute you have to have a camera on me, you must not trust me.
Would that have to do something along the line of inventory, like?
You got to have a way for accountability. But that would be real hard to go measure the juice and all of that.
Well, I meant like more like the supplies, like the cups.
Yeah. But you know, you go into some places like this and you know what they say? Please ask for a receipt. That's why they're asking for that. Please ask for a receipt. Because if your receipt only shows one smoothie that's rung up, but you paid for two, you got a problem. So how are you going to think about these things? I don't know the answer to these, but you need to think about how are you going to be in control of that when cash could be the main way that people are paying. Or, you know, are you going to use some other form of payment to avoid that?
I had someone at the store, the most store.
Oh, come on, we're used to beating up stores.
That rang up our groceries, and they had bought like 3 bottles of this soda or drink or something. And the guy charged us for 4. So I took the receipt and went back to him. And he told me what I owe, or what he owed me. So he gave me the change and he gave me like a penny less than it should have been. And so I went back and I said, you said this dollar amount with the cents, but you only gave me this. And he goes, he rolled his eyes and was like, it was bad. I was like,
Yeah, where was I when they thought it was, oh, I was at the Taco Bell. I don't mind beating up businesses. I was at the Taco Bell.
We know what to be aware of, right?
Yeah, when I was at Taco Bell when I work late at the HEC, I'll run in there and just get a drink to take with me or something. And the guy would automatically keep the change. If it was 10 or anything under 10 cents, 15 cents, he just kept it. So I realized what happened and I turned my car around and I went in and I said, you know what? You may need that 10 cents more than I do, and that's fine. But that is a very poor practice and sets a really bad red flag out for your employer. I wouldn't make that a common practice anymore. Well, he doesn't do it for me anymore, but I don't know, maybe he hit his $1 million and he went on somewhere else by keeping everybody's change. But to make that assumption, I don't care if it's a penny, that's not your money. If you want to choose to put it in the little change thing.
He was rude the first time when I returned this, told him that he didn't charge us for the right amount. And so when he was a penny shy, when I walked away, I was like, that's it.
Yeah, normally you wouldn't have cared, but he already pushed the buttons. Another thing when we're talking, like Walter said about a script, you could have it goes south or it goes off this way. The sale is going good and you're going this way, or you've got a complaint over here that you're needing to deal with. How are you going to deal with those things? If it's a complaint, these are the ways that we handle it. If everything's going smooth, this is the way we get our feedback. So, someone may be coming in to return something, how are we dealing with it? Yes?
One question, like in general, do we have any business designers on the computers in the library? Which exactly can do that with like connections and everything?
No, I think you can do some of it in Excel. There is project management, but I don't know that it'll count this. I don't need a lot of this, but if you're going along just giving me the script, you may at some point say, and if a customer is unhappy, these are the ways we handle it. If everything's going with, this is the way that we thank them and solicit feedback for to do it better next time. So not extensive. I mean, you can draw it even in Word. Yeah.
You just want like one example of a type of complaint, not like every complaint you could think of.
Yeah, and you may not have, I'm not even talking about a complaint. Maybe this is a return. How is it dealt with differently? Or there is a complaint. What are the steps that you've allowed your employees to do? We talked about empowering your employees to make the decision. Or how are you going to deal with it? Or what point you as the owner step in?
I feel like with mine, I could have complaints with the customer service and with the food quality. And it could be someone's complaining immediately or they come back to complain.
Yeah.
Like, should I just do like an example of one?
No, I'm going to leave that up to you guys. I just want to have a pretty good visual of walking into your place of business, what that experience is like. So whether the complaints are all in there or whatever, but to really have a good snapshot of what that looks like.
So numbered like bullet points?
You can bullet point it, you can do whatever, it can be like a script, but I really think about when you get finished. I did this one year to my class. I'm sure it's happened to you guys as younger adults, where your teacher made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich based off your recipe. Did you ever have that? Well, I did that in the $4.99 once. They weren't impressed. But they would say, well, put the peanut butter on the bread. I was trying to tell them I needed a complete screenshot. You forgot to say hello. You forgot to take the money. What, you missed these pieces. So I'd say, okay, how do I make this peanut butter jelly sandwich? And I had a knife, and I had the bread, and I had the peanut butter and jelly. And they'd say, well, put the peanut butter on the bread. Well, I was being a goofball. Well, I couldn't figure out how to do it because the jar wasn't open yet. And then once I got the jar open, I used my hand. instead of the knife and splattered on there. And I made them eat those sandwiches too. But my point is, don't leave out some of the things. I really want to have a clear shot of what you're talking about. So think about that.
I have a really good story about complaints or issues. I work as a
Talk louder so they can hear you on
I work as a care provider, and my client smoked, and I just quit smoking 3 months ago. So we talked briefly about it the first time I was there, and she mentioned that she had a plan on quitting at some point, but it wasn't time, and so by the second day that I went to help her, because she had said she wanted to quit eventually, I took that as, well, maybe I could be the one that helps her to do that. And so the next time we went there, we talked about it, and I called my boss and said, I don't know if this is gonna work. And a half hour after I left that day, she called work and said, well, I want her back. So the next time I went there, she had put her ashtray outside and was smoking outside. And I was pretty excited because it helped, it helps her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how you deal with things, I mean, she could have been willing to say, I don't want you for that service, and off you went, but then again, you needed to take care of yourself too. So, yeah, there's lots of situations that you get put in that you're not always prepared for. And you can't be prepared for all of them, but you do need to have a plan in mind when a customer's not happy. What are the steps you take? Okay? Even though we always say the customer's always right, you make them think they are, but they aren't always right. Most of the time they're not at all. Okay? But you make them think they are, and you treat them as if they are. You don't want to alienate them. I guess sometimes. I'm a customer. I'm always right. And then we talked before about a contingency plan that may go in your expenses. So if you feel that that is one of the first things that go if you don't have finances though. Not your advertising, contingency plan would go first, but there's one there. And so maybe there's some other issues, insurance, safety and health, other things that may come into your operations that are unique to your business. So make sure you read over those worksheets. The technology plan, as I mentioned at the beginning, may or may not constitute its own section, meaning a whole nother heading in a page. It may just be another subheading within the operations, and that's fine. It just depends on you and how much technology is going to play in your business. So when we talk about technology, the plan really is what type of technology are you going to need? How long will it last? What is your, time frame? How often does the technology need to be replaced? What's the software? I want to know specifically. I do not want to know you're going to use a point of sales software program. I want to know the name of it. Okay, I want to know what it can do. How is it going to assist you? Does it take care of, does it give you feedback on inventory that you're getting low on? A lot of that software you can say, when I get down to 3, flag me so I know to order it again. Or some of it's so sophisticated, automatically orders it for you when it gets down to 3 and links right to your supplier. Okay? So what kind of software do you need? Do some research. I want you to pick the software. Okay? We also need a list of the technology, the hardware itself. What are you going to need? Are you going to need some laptops? Are you going to need some iPads or some kind of tablets? Are you going to need a smartphone? What part of it are you going to need? What do you need? A cash register? A Visa card? Are you going to just use the Square from your Apple or your smartphone? So what are you going to need technology, the hardware part of it too? And choosing the technology really needs to be ease of use, because your employers are going to be using it. It needs to be cost effective, needs to be secure, right? We just saw Target let all the information about their customers go out. That became such a huge thing that I bank at Chase, when I opened up to pay bills, there was a huge thing. If you've shopped at Target, boy, isn't that scary that Target was listed. Not if you've shopped at a store that may have been jeopardized. Target was written across my thing. And I didn't take the initiative to get a new card. I thought I was okay. And after about 2 months of that, Chase decided everybody got a new card regardless. You know, so we all got, so what measures are you going to take if you're doing websites that are collecting credit card information? What are you going to use to stay safe? What are you going to use to make sure that when they hit something in the search engine that optimization, you're at the top? Okay? What are all those things? All the technology related. How are you going to be connected to the internet? You know, have anybody eaten at Mucho Gusto? It's a great place. Guess why I don't go there more often at night when I'm doing things? No Wi-Fi. No Wi-Fi. So I usually end up at Red Robin. Some of my students work there because it has Wi-Fi. I can get work done at the same time if I just need to make sure I can get something to eat but want to keep working. Don't want to clean up a kitchen and do all that stuff. So are you going to provide that, and if so, how is it going to be secured? Kristen, you're using the camera stuff. All that will go in here. How people log on. How the privacy. Right? Someone was talking about children. Maybe it wasn't in here. Who's dealing with children? Nobody in here? Okay. And they were talking about putting pictures on the web of what the children were doing. That's a big issue you need to look for. I don't know if the parents can just sign permission on that or if it's just forbidden completely. So make sure that you understand the technology of what you can have on your website. And is your stuff copyrighted or is it your own information? So everything technology based, from the smartphone you're going to use, to the printers, to the Visa and credit card machines, to cameras, to security, to optimization on the web page, all of that. And again, I think most of you can include that in your chapter of operations. I don't think you need to do more. But I'll leave it up to you. I mean, if you have two pages of it, it probably then can be on its own. If you have 2 or 3 paragraphs, then probably leave it alone and keep it in the operations. So I'll leave that completely up to you guys on that. But read over the technology budget. It talks about all the different types of software, you know, whether you're going to use QuickBooks or just the Office suite, or you're going to use some proprietary, which we call vertical market software, meaning that it's industry specific, either for gyms or for board games or for stores or whatever. There's a lot of industry specific, probably is industry specific software for just about everything you guys are doing. All your hardware needs, your telecommunication needs, and then consultants may be repeated in here, even though you'll talk about them in your management sections that were due last night. Consultants that specifically relate to technology. Are you hiring someone to keep your web page up? And remember, web page isn't created once and put aside. When you go to a web page where the pictures are old, or something isn't updated, or their hours aren't updated, that's a bad impression. In fact, that happened to me. What's the brewery downtown on Main Street? No, in Medford, huh?
No,
SOB?
What's SOB?
Southern Oregon.
Is it next to the pizza place?
no, it's next to Jackson Creek.
Yeah, what
Beer
was it?
Works.
Oh, huh? Beer Works. Yeah, a couple of us were going to meet there to talk about some business stuff, and we looked on the web, and the time was different than they were really open. We all sat down, they said, you know, we're closing in 5 minutes. And I just went, you know, how long would it really take you to update your web page? Because we had to gather all our stuff up and go find somewhere else. Well, we'll never meet there again.
They didn't search you
Huh?
anyway?
Nope, wouldn't let us stay, they were closing up. But let us sit down and get our stuff spread out. So make sure your web page is up to date. It is a direct reflection and may be the first impression that a business sees of you. Most likely it is, right? I remember when the web really became large, not all universities had a presence on the web page, and they said, you better, because in the eyes of young people, if you're not on the web, you don't exist. So even if you hadn't planned on having a web page, you may need it just as an information page. Here's where we're located, here's where our hours are, and this is how you contact us.
When I Google something, I hate it when it's on a website, like, where I can just get more information directly from.
Right, and what I like now, especially on my iPhone, it'll have a place where you can call. So you don't even have to dial the number, and you just hit the call button or the location button or something, and it goes directly to calling them. And so that's really good. So think about all those ways that your image is going to be out there. Okay, do you guys have any questions on the technology operations section? TMP that I went over, if we need to do that again a couple times, we'll start talking about financials again. You were all supposed to, and the only person I can remember who did it is Sydney, be on LinkedIn. You're already on?
Yeah.
Did y'all invite me?
I did.
I think you're on. I think I accepted both of yours.
Oh, I better go back and.
Gotta do this.
Yeah, do it. You'd be surprised what articles, you don't have to invite me, but go ahead and get logged on, and there's some cool article stuff there. So make sure you do that. Again, we'll keep talking about the TMT if we have to, and we'll definitely keep talking about financials probably every day here on out. The financials need to start having some numbers in them, guys. Right? Have any of you not even opened the Excel file? Who's the bravest one in here to admit it?
I opened it.
You opened it? You opened it? You opened it? Trini, you opened it? That's not a very confident yes.
I opened it yesterday.
You did?
I did.
Good.